Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another video. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing wonderful. Hope you're all remembering to take care of yourselves. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok. There's a link in the description below. Trying to get over 1,000 followers. As I mentioned before, everyone keeps screaming. I'm not joking. Everyone keeps screaming, you got to get over 1,000 followers. And I'm like, I'm trying my best. So it's always a big help if you can. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. You know the deal. April, May, and June. If you haven't heard that before, I don't know where you've been. But how do I say this? Analysts basically have been screaming from the digital mountaintops that the next 3 months are going to be exceptional price-wise. We've had a flurry of news recently revolving around different countries and stock exchanges around the world who are also buying, using, and integrating cryptocurrency in some form or fashion. We're also getting a lot more than we even had before. Typically, 2 or 3 times a week, we get some kind of news that a company has purchased, bought, accumulated either Bitcoin for the first time or Bitcoin for the second, third, fourth, fifth. They've done it before. There seems to be a really weird ramp up, even more so in accumulation than we had previously heard before. The conundrum for me has always been how we have this much accumulation and have these many companies who are talking about buying crypto and buying Bitcoin. And I'm waiting for the moment where the masses also understand that this is something that's big and that's going to get bigger and is going to rise even higher in price. I think it's just a time will tell kind of thing. NASDAQ listed video sharing platform called Rumble has announced that it has made a significant Bitcoin investment. They apparently purchased 188 Bitcoin for 17.1 million US dollars. The purchase was made at an average price of $91,000 per coin as part of the company's broader strategy to embrace Bitcoin as a treasury asset. The move also aligns, or appears to align, with Rumble's previously announced plans to allocate up to $20 million of its cash reserves into Bitcoin. The CEO stated he supports the company's interests and blah, 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 citing Bitcoin's potential as a hedge against inflation. Yeah, another company has apparently joined the fray, but this happens constantly all the time. So even funnier, this was not the most popular news story. Isn't that funny? You would normally assume because Rumble is fairly well known, but it's because of the amount. People in crypto are so digitally desensitized to any number that isn't in the hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. The fact that they, and I, lightly say this, that they only purchased $17 million was not enough to actually make this big news, irrespective of the fact that 188 Bitcoin is gone. It's just off the table completely. 188 more millionaires and billionaires will never be able to own an entire coin. And this also takes away fragmentations of Bitcoins for tens of thousands of other people. I think this is probably, realistically, maybe, coming in response to the idea of the United States and other countries also buying Bitcoin as well, which has also been so heavily in the news recently if you've seen any of the last couple of videos. I think this will eventually continue. How do I say this? It feels like everyone is part of the game, or at least all the institutions seem to be part of the game at this point. I still believe, and I will tell you out loud, I think a lot of the world won't care about this or recognize that it's happening until Bitcoin's over $1 million, and or if we have like a really dramatic price spike one day. And I mean, like, if we go from like 200,000 to like 238,000 because of some like hyper illiquidity in the market or a supply shock. But besides that, yeah, we're hearing about this all the time. I wish that I've seen lists before of like corporate Bitcoin holders, because I was trying to go through all the numbers and see how much that they had. But those numbers also aren't accurate. A lot of the lists tend to have, if a company is holding more than 5,000 or holding more than 10,000 Bitcoin, or has like publicly announced before at some point. So the number's always going to be completely skewed. It's kind of like, how we know that MicroStrategy has, if you missed it, has over 500,000 Bitcoin now, which is disgustingly insane. But we don't know the exact number that Michael Saylor has. Like, we will never know again exactly how much Bitcoin he has. We can look at and see that BlackRock in their Bitcoin ETF has X amount of Bitcoin, but we will never know how much Larry Fink has. And if you assume that Larry Fink has none, you might just want to go back to kindergarten or something like that, because he's clearly obviously holding a lot as well. And you also have to like wonder about his constituents, how many other people. So there's never going to be like an accurate number, but we get pretty good daily indications of how little there actually is left. So yeah, Rumble purchased 188 Bitcoin. I assume they're going to try and round it out to 200 Bitcoin. But this also feels like one of those situations where, if Bitcoin begins to pump, they're going to try and get to like 1,000 as well. So yeah, that's the Rumble news. Constant accumulation all the time. It's like a real, literal, never-ending story. Also popularly in the news constantly as well is stablecoin growth. I know it might not seem like the most exciting thing in the world, but you usually should be crossing your fingers for things like this to happen. Stablecoins tend to be a good indicator of how much money is in crypto and is going to flow into the cryptocurrency market. Back when we first got Tether, the idea is that the reason why we are seeing so many stablecoins created, printed, minted, is because behind the scenes, there are heavy-handed investors who are like, we need extra liquidity in the market to be able to do the trades that we're actively trying to do. If there's only $800 million worth of stablecoins and institutions come in with $40 billion trying to trade back and forth, guess what? It's not going to work. So if you have billions of dollars in the stablecoin market, and we keep hearing, it's also a very good indication that we hear that they're making more. If all the stable coins that we had now, if that was it, it would literally show that there's no new institutional interest in the market. So upon hearing that, for those of you not looking at the screen, Tether and the Circle coin on Ethereum, the amount of them increased by $1.3 billion in the last week. It's incredible. Once again, the average person won't find news like this exciting or really understand or care about any kind of like actual liquidity in the market, but it's what keeps us going. You want to see that stablecoins continue creating more. This is why we had that big and still do weird tug of war between all these companies who are just talking negatively about each other, because they also want to create their own stablecoins. I think within the next decade or two, I think stablecoins are expected to be a multi-trillion-dollar market, like $5 to $10 trillion just within stablecoins. This is why you're also hearing about legislation and stuff like that trying to get passed as well. Always remember, they're not doing this to make life easier or simpler for you. No, they're also trying to put their hands in the gigantic money cookie jar, because Tether alone processes trillions of dollars every quarter, if not every couple of months, just through Tether. So this is why you're seeing these other countries like, hey, we need to also create our own stablecoins. They're trying to take market cap away from Tether and also trying to make a bunch of money themselves, because this changes the entire idea of like the movement of money, as far as if a bank creates, let's say, $1 billion, like in paper money, and you go outside and you use that paper money and everyone's using paper money, well, guess who doesn't get a fee or a cut of it? The bank. So this is why you have the rapid integration that we've seen over the last 20 years of making everything by card or tapping your phone, is because there's a fee associated with all of that. Well, how do you go one step further? You as a government, you say, well, we're not creating a central bank digital currency because that sounds scary. But we're going to create our own stablecoin that the government and the Fed has control over and that they're minting and that they're creating. And every time a transaction happens, there's a fee. And who gets that fee? The United States government or any other government who's also creating their own stablecoin. So yeah, stablecoins are expected to, really like flourish in the next couple of years. And this is why you're also constantly hearing about these stablecoin bills trying to be pushed through. It's always just about money. Somebody at the top is always trying to make a couple of extra cents, and that's the way that the world is moving. So yeah, this tends to bode well for cryptocurrency prices as we see extra money from stablecoins actually flowing into the market. That can't be right. That's ridiculous. For those of you not looking at the screen, I never even looked down. It says Visa on-chain analytics acknowledged that global businesses are embracing stablecoin payments at a growing rate. The analytics firm reported that the total transaction volume using stablecoins exceeded $240 trillion in 30 days. That sounds ridiculous. Maybe it's meant to be billion. $240 trillion that number can't be correct. We've heard before that Tether tends to do like 1 to 2 trillion per month. 240 trillion and 30 that something. Anyway, yeah, that's a stable coin news. It's great for our market as long as we continue to see increased amounts of them. And yeah, let's move on. Also in the never-ending story news, Metaplanet has purchased more Bitcoin. Metaplanet now has 3,350 Bitcoin, with the firm aiming to hold 10,000 BTC by the end of this year and 21,000 Bitcoin by 2026. Metaplanet is trying to own 1% of all Bitcoin out there. In a nice way, I don't think they're going to be able to do it, just because if Bitcoin's price continues to rise, unless they really find a way to get like a good $1 billion, that's not really how numbers work. Metaplanet has increased their Bitcoin holdings to 3,350 after buying an additional 150 BTC for approximately $12.6 million US. The firm has been accelerating its acquisition throughout 2025, adding 1,288 Bitcoin in the first 11 weeks of this year. Yeah, we heard usually before Metaplanet came out of nowhere and they were like, we got 3 Bitcoins, we got 15 Bitcoins, and then they kind of like upped it a lot. They're doing nearly the same exact thing that MicroStrategy is doing, like issuing debt against the company, which is also very fascinating because it's also causing, I don't know what the current number is, but it's caused their stock price to also rise quite significantly just because they announced that they're like buying Bitcoin. So a lot of other companies have begun to do the same thing in practice, or they're mimicking them in some sort of way. I was going to say I hope it works out for them. I think Bitcoin's going to 1 million, so I think they will be just fine. It's just one of those, I can't imagine having a company and then issuing billions of dollars of debt against the company that I own to buy Bitcoin. Once again, hindsight 90/90. It'll probably all work out in the end, but fear grips me. I heard something recently. Somebody was talking about that they have a mortgage for like $4.3 million. And I was like, how do you sleep at night? If I'm like a little in debt, I have a problem. Like a low smidge in debt. I told you all before, it was one of those, like, not buy now, pay later, but like, pay an installment kind of things. I bought a lot of art. This was like 2 or 3 years ago. And it would take, through the payment plan, I think like 12 months to pay the whole thing back. And I was completely over it. I was like, what did I do? Why did I do this? Like, it was gigantic pieces of art that like I really wanted. And I wasn't in the mood to pay for the entire thing at all in one go. But that was also like a 5-figure sum. That wasn't like millions of dollars at the exact same time. So yeah, Metaplanet's in the news just about every other day. And when I was saying I don't know if they'll make it to 10,000 or 21,000, it's mainly because like their purchases are usually around like the millions, like 12 million, 11 million, 14 million. What happens if Bitcoin does go to $500,000 this year? They'll need 5 times, like, they'll need a good 60 million just to get that same 150. So, anywho, that's the Metaplanet news. Fantastic. Okie dokie. Moving along. We, for whatever reason, if you saw the last couple of videos, we are in like a Europe kind of crypto news area that we've been hearing about. The last news that we got came from BlackRock. BlackRock just launched Bitcoin ETFs and ETPs within the European Union. What was the other one? There was another bank. Oh gosh, I don't remember what it was. There was another bank who just announced crypto something, and then also the German stock exchange is also going to be custodying and something elsing for crypto. Apparently, leading asset management firm 21 Shares has expanded its foothold into Europe with its latest crypto products, according to a recent announcement. The firm has listed Bitcoin Core exchange-traded product, the Solana staking exchange-traded product, and the XRP exchange-traded product on the Nasdaq Stockholm. 21 Shares has expanded its European foothold, yada, yada, yada. According to the announcement, the product includes low-cost Bitcoin ETPs, a Solana staking ETP, and XRP ETF, which are primarily designed for both retail and institutional traders. The firm's head of financial product development has lauded the update, highlighting this expansion as a key milestone for the firm. We went over in the last other videos, obviously, there's money to be made in Europe, and I think a lot of the news that we've been getting has been down to, historically, we have heard that the money moving the market has usually revolved around the United States, South Korea, and Japan. This is what we've heard historically as far as money moving around. But something must be going on, because I do not think everyone would be launching their ETFs and ETPs surrounding cryptocurrencies, especially not BlackRock, unless something was like, really actually going on. If you missed it as well in a number of other videos, there are 2. The number's probably 4. But I know for certain that there are 2 countries that have like 0% taxes on crypto in Europe. So I assume this is also why we're seeing this expanding as well. There's clearly some kind of interest from it, but as I am not an institution, I could not exactly tell you what. But yeah, it's all very fascinating. This has been a very weird year. Last year was already quite intense because we got the Bitcoin ETFs, we saw the interest, we saw the money moving into the market. It's not the middle of April. It's not the middle of April, and we're getting such crazy news all the time about everything happening. And like, I don't know how to really take it. For those of you who missed it, in the US, there are currently over 40 different cryptocurrency altcoin ETF applications with the SEC. We have not Coinbase. We have Gemini, Kraken, Ripple, other company, and so, all trying to go public. We have all these ETFs and ETPs launching around the world. We have crazy accumulation levels. The amount of Ether on exchanges hasn't been this low since 2015. The accumulation by the Bitcoin whales continues. All this energy around the Ripple stablecoin, the Ripple going public, there's so much happening. It's been like 12 weeks. Think about it. It hasn't this hasn't been going on for 185 weeks. It's been 12 weeks. It's a very I don't know. Something incredible has to happen this year, because otherwise this will be really one for the books. It just doesn't make any sense. But it appears that from at least what the news that we've been getting, there's a lot of building up of structures as we've been going over the last week. It seems like a lot of the news that we're getting is preparing for launch of something, if that makes any sense. There's too much expansion. There's too much focus on all these funds and things being listed within Europe, within Germany, within Stockholm, within Paris. And it's okay, something's clearly going on. All the little, little news that we keep getting about this company bought 150 Bitcoin, 188 Bitcoin. It all adds up really, really quick, because these are also the companies who are telling us they want to be in the news. The other ones do not want to be in the news, and they're accumulating very quietly. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see where this market is really in 15 to 20 years. I'm expecting great things, but it's definitely going to be one of those, from my vantage point. I wish I had more or had purchased more kind of things, because this all has to lead to something crazy, right? Everything that we've been getting every single day has to lead to something absolutely phenomenal in the future. So that's the 21 shares news. Yeah, if these funds do well, we will definitely hear about it in the news. That's how it usually works. A couple of weeks go by, and then we hear how much money is flowing into them. That's the 21 shares, Solana, Bitcoin, and XRP ETFs and ETPs. And yeah, let's move on. I saw this and my jaw almost dropped. If you've been here before, this is historical news. Shiba Inu is back in the news. Yeah, that Shiba Inu. We existed in a time period in cryptocurrency where Shiba Inu was in the news daily. You think it's a joke? No. Shiba Inu and what's the other one? Terra Luna Classic were in the news daily. It was completely, so this when I saw this, I was like, is the bull run back? Are we back in the mega crazy bull market? Because this is how it used to be a long time ago. For those of you who don't know, basically, long story short, Shiba Inu is a meme coin. Got it. The problem is that it's a popular meme coin. When it was created, they had so many coins, and people were like, why did you make it with so many coins? And then the Shiba Inu team came forward and they were like, oh, our bad. So they created a burn protocol. They created a Shiba Inu metaverse. There's a whole coin ecosystem, and part of the coin burn was so popular that it actually got picked up by crypto exchanges. Yeah, so instead of it just being on chain, every time that the transactions were happening on Binance or what have you, they would calculate that, and those extra coins would also get burned as well. So we were having news really daily that these coins were being burned, and the goal of, if I remember correctly, the goal of Shiba Inu is to get the coin to 1 cent. I think that's what the number was. Apparently, the recent coin burn soared by 8,000%, which basically tells me that more people have been using the chain and more money is flowing through it and blah, 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 blah. Apparently, 1 billion Shiba Inu were burned or transferred to the wallet address that only allows inflows. So no coins can ever leave it. Therefore, we call it a burn address. Yeah, I'm shocked. This hasn't been in the news and I don't know how long. Let's see if we end up getting a lot more of this. It feels weird because it feels like a simpler time in the market. Like things were we knew eventually that we'd get an ETF. We knew eventually that Ethereum would move up in price. There was no real question mark. It was just kind of Shiba Inu's going to hit 1 cent. But I feel like our market is in such like a tornado all the time between all the news that's constantly popping up. But yeah, like a literal blast from the past. Shiba Inu's burn rate soared by 8,000%. They burned 1 billion Shiba Inus. Let's see if they get to 1 cent. Look at that. How crazy time is. And yeah, moving along. Also in popular news, you'll see why. I'm pretty sure you're noticing the trend in some sort of way. Fold Holdings is the first publicly traded Bitcoin native financial services company. I don't know what that means. Speak in English. The first publicly traded Bitcoin native financial services company. Okay. Has significantly expanded its Bitcoin treasury. They purchased another 475 Bitcoin, bringing their holdings to 1,485 Bitcoin, valued at nearly 130 million US dollars. Wait, hold on. Publicly traded Bitcoin native financial services. Are they basically like a company that helps to send Bitcoin around the world? This was also how old is this company? This was a thing years ago that perplexed many within the space. So the point of Bitcoin is that you don't need a middleman. You can transact at any time with your friends or your family as long as they have a Bitcoin address. A number of companies like Stripe and Strike and Mike and Tyke began to pop up, and they basically were like, yeah, we'll help you send Bitcoin around the world. And I was like, do they know what blockchain actually is? And it was meant to be like a regulatorily acceptable way of sending crypto around the world that had like a track record. So Jimmy James send Bitcoin to his friend Mikey Mike through our company and so and so and so. I guess maybe Fold is one of them, but it's a weird kind of sentence. And I say this in a nice way as well. If they're the first to do it, I would assume they'd have like 30,000 Bitcoin and not just 1,400. Because if I would assume they got in when Bitcoin was like $1 or $2. It's also like that same thing that we heard before, which I still do not believe. Coinbase, this was 2 years ago. People were asking Coinbase how much Bitcoin they had, and somebody was like, yeah, we have 3,000 Bitcoins. And I was like, what? You're Coinbase. You know what? Coinbase got started. I'm screaming. Coinbase got started when Bitcoin was $1. In order to create something like Coinbase, you need an investment of a good couple million dollars. To expand, like Coinbase has, you need a couple hundred million, if not a couple billion dollars. You expect me to believe and Coinbase, for those of you who do not know, was a Bitcoin-only exchange. It was literally like fighting a Gigantosaurus Rex to get them to list any other coin. This is not a joke. This is OG Coinbase. And when they said 2 years ago that they have, I think it was like 1,800, it was some weird number. I was like, you can buy that when you sneeze. Coinbase can buy that probably every hour just based off of fees, because they have very high fees if they wanted to. You expect me to believe that Coinbase, the largest exchange in the United States, who has partnered with Fidelity and BlackRock, doesn't have over 150,000 Bitcoin? Think about that. It would have literally taken $150,000 when they first launched to buy 150,000 Bitcoin. I don't know, something's off there. I know they're lying. This 50% increase in Bitcoin holdings was made through the issuance. Oh boy, everyone's doing that MicroStrategy thing. The 50% increase in Bitcoin holdings was made through the issuance of a convertible note with a conversion price of $12.50, more than double the company's closing share price when they issued all of this. Cool. So, yeah, another company. What was that, 3, this video or something like that? Yeah, this happens all the time. We're going to continue hearing more and more about the, you know who we haven't heard about in a while? Tether. Yeah, Tether, every quarter, I want to say every quarter, they take 15% of their earnings and they use that to buy Bitcoin. We used to hear a lot about that years ago, but they've been very hush-hush with that. Maybe there's like a website or something where they posted, but they were buying like gargantuan amounts of Bitcoin before, and they're still continuing to do so. So yeah, if we can be honest with ourselves, it feels like every like day, like a good 1,000 Bitcoin is kind of like leaving the market. I'm sure even the number's higher than that, but this is what we're hearing about publicly. So yeah, I wonder where this is all going to go, because with the numbers, they're going to own all the Bitcoin in like a year or two. Just throwing that out there. And this is, we have not even discussed the additional 800,000 Bitcoin acquisition by the US of A. So fascinating times ahead. I think that's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope that you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.